Thank you. And now I believe it's time to open up for questions from the audience. And I see a hand raised already, Elijah. And I will, if the person asking the question is not loud enough, I'll try to repeat it with the microphone.
The title of the program is Gentrification, Affordable Housing, and Race. What I'm going to do is assume that you are assuming that the identifications and the things that you've earmarked that cause gentrification are understood. Race hasn't been touched. I bring that to issue because, unfortunately, meetings such as this, Augustana is the only church that really gets that close to the traditional African American community, because we don't communicate at this particular level because we be talking to ourselves. And when you're totally affected by it, even though some that aren't affected by it, who come in and drive out, and their leadership should, but that doesn't happen. You haven't explained whether gentrification has occurred, and for those who don't know, they need to know what gentrification is, how that handles and how that affects a predominant market, the economic part where it would mean that everything's already done and those who are able to take advantage of that gentrification can take advantage of that. But when the African American community only owns 15% of their property in a town like Omaha, Nebraska, that's a done deal. That means we're out of the picture. We're not in the conversation. We're not talking about us being landlords. We're talking about us being tenants. But the masses of us, those who are already on housing, have been shifted out of the area already. This ain't the answer system, but here again, this is the only kind of mechanism that our community has the opportunity, and Ajamal has stated it when he first spoke out, to look for some type of support outside of taking things into our own hands. And by the prisons and other systems and our kids and everybody else already being assumed into one of the largest penal systems in the country, Nebraska, that's not too smart of a thing for us to do. But at some point in time, being smart don't help, particularly if you're miseducated. I don't understand why you have gentrification at the top and you haven't explained it.
I'm not going to respond to it because I like the way you phrased that. You know, one of the things that I like to say all the time, and I'm going to do 3 quick points, but I'm trying to answer it. I know there's a couple people in this room who's really good at poker and bridge. I'm not going to look at them, but I know they're really good. And if you want to talk about poker and bridge and talk to me about it, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I know people in this room who are good at chess. I don't know how to play that either. You follow me? But sometimes I can fool y'all to think I know how to play because I know how to play checkers. You follow me? Not the same thing. And I think that's part of this sleight of hand, Elijah, that you allude to. There are things that happen right in front of us, and we really have not even learned to articulate it to deal with it. We know something bad is happening. And the point I really want to think, and I'll say this, I suffer from SDADD. It's self-diagnosed attention deficit disorder. So when people start talking on one topic, but it's not the real topic, my mind goes to a different place. And what I'm trying to say, folks, if we are serious about this gentrification, I saw it when I went to Brooklyn, New York. I saw it when I went to Chicago. I saw it even here. And there's some of us with positions of leadership who won't call it out because there are deals that have already been made. And some of it is pure economic, some of it's race, some is class, some of it's all of above. But the point I want to leave with, and I think it's your point you raised, Elijah, and I probably don't want to answer it well, it goes back to the notion that how can I advocate or do stuff if I'm not prepared to do it for myself or anyone else? So in other words, it's like years ago, I'm not going to call the agency out because I like this agency a lot, Appleseed and Voices for Children, but they were talking about public policy, and I asked a simple question. How many letters have you written in the past year? You want us to do that, but what have you done to push the envelope back? So Elijah, going back to your point, what have we done individually or collectively to make sure we have diversity in this community and that we don't get the manifestation of gentrification, which is happening? And I know PRI did a previous event. We had a great turnout. But our shortcoming was we didn't have the next steps. And I think part of this could be the next step. What do we do to reverse that? And again, I didn't answer the question exactly, but if you don't talk about race, if you don't talk about the encroachment of what happens down in City Hall and what's happening in this community, First National Bank, Creighton, all the entities who are moving forward, you can go right over on Izzard Street. All those new apartments going up there. Who's talking about that in our community? And is there diversity or addressing gentrification there? And those are the questions I think you raised, but I don't necessarily think I can answer because I don't know how to play chess, I don't know how to play bridge, I don't know how to play poker.
I don't play chess well at all. Gentrification is displacement. I think that's the simplest explanation for it.
In terms of race classes, right?
Yeah. So, like, for instance, what's happened in Omaha and what happens in cities all over, right, is that, you know, decades ago, all the white people decided to move to West Omaha because East Omaha wasn't up to their standards, right? And now suddenly we have a renewed interest in the urban core, which I'm all for density, right? And now suddenly we want to invest in these neighborhoods that we left entirely and forgot about, and that we spent time then, as was brought up earlier, right, stripping equity out of these communities by decreasing their ability to own homes, by taking their property out from under them in tax sales, all this kind of thing, and doing what? To clear it for who? And that's, I think, the central question of gentrification is, what are we doing to actually benefit this community that exists, and who are we asking to move in? Who are we asking to do the work? That would be, I mean, it's a complicated subject, but to me, that's my checkers answer as to Jamal.
I didn't know what the protocol was.
Oh, the word. Armstrong. So I have two questions and a statement. The two questions are, does everybody on the panel believe that gentrification is actually taking place? Do you believe that it's taking place?
You want to show hands?
Yeah.
Okay.
Show hands. Do you believe that it's taking place?
Show hands. He didn't ask the audience to show his hands. He's on the panel. Okay, this is a second raise your hand.
What was the question? Do you believe
The second
gentrification?
question I have for the panel is, if you believe that gentrification is taking place currently, are you, within your capacity in your different organizations, are you doing something to counteract gentrification?
I gotta go, y'all. Sorry, I'm good.
Yeah, I would say that's missing middle housing campaign is with those changes in code, because it allows people to age in place and not get priced out of the market in a way if the costs start to increase, to find ways to create those, I called it a mother-in-law suite. I think the technical term is the additional dwelling unit. So they can find a way to maybe rent that out or allow a family member to live there so they can age in place. And when the Gen Z or new millennials want to come into the core of the city, they don't need those, I call them big box apartment complexes where you have to buy out the neighborhood, what you call urban renewal. Instead, they can just find those condos and townhomes that can be built in sort of the nooks and crannies if we change the code. And you may say, Patrick, wait a second. Now, there's already condos and townhomes now. I would say those were built before certain code changes, and I don't pretend to be an expert on the history of why those changes were made. You have some information in front of you. But what I would say is, well, it's time to change some codes back so those kinds of housing opportunities and options can be more available, and that's why we like it. It's sort of a market approach rather than just waiting for some agency and to come in and help. But you do need government, because you've got to change those codes, and I don't think people understand the importance of code and how it starts to have those kinds of unintended consequences, but sometimes they're intended consequences. Make sense?
I'm going to deal with the question that is underlying, I believe, several of these last questions, which is the issue of race.
I'm sorry, sir. I had two questions in the statement. You're getting ready to change this dialogue.
Go ahead.
So, and not to be rude, but gentrification has already taken place. It's already in place. It's already in action. And it's not taking place from East Omaha to West Omaha. And I understand you trying to be, politically correct, and that's not a slight. I understand. But it's North Omaha that's actually affected by it, not anywhere else in the city. Okay? And what's actually happening is all of the entertainment district and all of the economic structure is set forth downtown. Okay? And it wasn't, people just decided to all of a sudden, we're tired of, East Omaha, we're gonna move out west because this is all brand new. No, they were actually running from people that look like the majority of the people in this room, black people. That's what redlining was, okay? They boxed us in an area, and when you look at different areas all across the country, as far as what's considered the hood, okay? That's the most common term that everybody knows. You didn't find things like backyards, fenced-in yards, two-story houses. So when you see those things, those are signs that should show you that those were abandoned areas. Well, why did people abandon those areas? They abandoned them because they didn't want to live next to people that didn't look like them, okay? And this is what happened in Omaha. We have a horrific history. I grew up on 24th and Seward all my life, Vietnam projects, okay? We have a horrific history in the city of not only unaffordable housing and terrible living conditions for people, but even with having this discussion on affordable housing, and I know that's what one of the topics that the discussion is about, in order to truly have affordable housing, you have to have economic stability to even afford affordable housing. Okay? So before we address where are people gonna live, we have to address how are people gonna live. They don't have jobs. They're dependent upon the system. What they're creating is what I call the pro syndrome. I went to a meeting where the land bank said they have more property than the city can even process right now. Okay? They can't do anything with it. But they won't allow the community at large to just readily go and buy these properties. Now, I know, there are people that have bought properties from the land bank that'll say, oh, yes, they will. Yes. All you gotta do is this and that and the other. Well, they make so many stipulations that you can't do it. They make rules so that you can't do it. And like this gentleman is talking about code, he understands. Code is a rule. It is a law that makes it so that you can't do something. I'm not going to just come out and tell you can't do it, but I'm going to make a code so you can't do it. Well, it's the same thing. You just said it on paper instead of saying it out your mouth. All of the commerce and entertainment is downtown. All this land here, all this affordable housing is being built on, and you're shown right here with the statistics. It's actually upscale housing. Okay? Think about this. If I build upscale housing, the people that live there, they can't afford it. So they're going to move. The people that can afford it are not going to be able to afford it long because they really don't have that kind of long-term money. They're going to move. So at the end of the day, in about 3 years, I'm going to get everybody to move out anyway. And a 3-year-old house or a 3-year-old condo is still new. So I built all of this under the guise of affordable housing so that we could basically price you out instead of putting you out, but price you out. So now we got the subsidy to build it. It's already built. We can move you right in. It's only 3 years old. We clean it up real good, and boom, you're in. This stuff is not being built for people of color, of any color, but especially not African American people in this city. Our representatives are not representing us in this city. And even though they're saying all these things, they're not doing it for us. They're doing it for money. This is all for profit. And it's not just, Caucasian people or this person, that. No, it's everybody that's in it for money. Okay? You have to have a heart to make sure that there's equity for everybody. You can't be just about money. And so this is not anything that's a slight against anybody on this panel, but I just want to make it clear what we see, like this elder keeps saying, is already in place. The infrastructure was already made. It was already built. Okay? All they're doing is executing the 50-year plan they already had. Okay? So either we have two options. Okay? We can either slow it down. We can't stop it. We can slow it down where we can have some stake in the community. Okay? Or we can get them to own what they've actually done, call the elephant that's in the room paying, and make them pay us to move out. Okay? That's really the only two equitable options. Okay?
I like that pay to move out. I like that.
No, seriously. Basically it would be like a reparation. You just own what you've done and take the penalty. You know what I'm saying? And then we move.
And this gets us to the action part of the discussion. And there's several hands that are up. There's one hand. One hand right back there.
We can have you up on the panel, bro. What do you think?
Bring my chair.
This ain't no joke. This is real. So anybody gonna laugh.
We serious. We know. We ready.
There's a question way in the back there.
Hi.
And John, if you have one too.
So, I'm Melissa. Hello, everybody. My question really isn't for the panel. It's for the people that came. I think we were looking for something, like maybe an answer to gentrification. I have seen a lot of faces at a lot of different meetings, like the Forever North at the Union. I went to City Hall, listened to the mayor give her beautiful soapbox speech, and nothing seems to be giving us any better feeling about what's happening. They tell us to vote. They tell us to own property, and how are we going to do that? So I am working with the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation, and I am creating Black Wall Street Omaha. It is my baby, and what I'm doing is I want to create a business directory so people can shop local businesses within the community. That's the best way to strengthen your is by building an infrastructure and supporting locally. So we need to start moving our money around in the community more than sending it, shopping out west. Being entrepreneurs, offering jobs locally, and then having, if you do own a home, before you sell it, find somebody that will buy it from you. Creating this old-fashioned family that we used to have back in the day, where before we went to the bank, people can buy from an owner. We live in a capitalist world. No matter what we do, there's always going to be banks with interest rates. There's always going to be landlords looking for the best, the highest amount of rent. I worked, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dominium. I worked for Dominium for 2 years. It's a tax credit company with that. Literally everything they did was like horrible. Hated working there, had to quit because I hated seeing Section 8 families put out every couple of months because they were 2-3 days late, and then their late fees were $100. If their portion is $50, why is your late fee $100? So there's a lot. We can go on and on and on and on about redlining and the issues and all of this, so we can come to these meetings. But change is not going to happen until we start looking within and start shopping amongst our family members, putting that money where our mouth is and buying those lands. Land bank is probably really hard to purchase, but if we come together, 2-3 of us bought a piece of land and we held it and we kept it until we were ready to build on it, those are ways we can fight gentrification. Places like the Union displaying the N-word publicly, yes, it's a form of expression, but they're pushing our comfort levels in our own community to see what they can get away with. So I really think it's important for all of us to continue to come to these meetings, to hear opinions, but really choose your leaders like very, very carefully, and really just use your money and your voting power as your voice. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, thank you. I guess what I want to answer is to what Aaron's saying about going to city council. I go to city council as much as I can most Tuesdays, and honestly, we should be calling Omaha New Omaha because the gentrification already happened. The buffaloes and the Indians were removed, and if we're going to leave this meeting calling displacement gentrification, we're not going to get where we're trying to go. We should be talking about the methods of displacement. I recommend that you look at a property and understand the history of how it was developed. You can go to the city archive or the civic center and get the papers that were passed to get those properties developed and understand the processes. For example, TIF is provided by the state. So it is state statute that allows the TIF committee to basically function off of, function automatic. Like if the developers have their papers properly, they're going to get their TIF. And so my question would be, does the city have a revitalization program for itself? I don't know. Because the TIF is not revitalization from the city council or the mayor. It's provided by the state. So this is an opportunity to put our ideas together and provide a program that the council members or the mayor can take a look at and say, yes, this is revitalization for Omaha, provided by Omahans. So if the panel can answer that, is there a revitalization tool that has been provided by the city council or city government?
No, I don't have an answer for that. I just wanted to say there's been a lot of discussion tonight about gentrification, affordable housing, and I just want to say on behalf of my organization, we identified that as a need and we tried to do something about it. It's very easy to talk about problems, but it's challenging in this community to come up with viable solutions. We're in the process now of building a 44-unit affordable housing project in South Omaha. Why South Omaha? Because it was an attractive place, a vibrant place to try to create an environment that would be safe and secure and attractive and affordable for all people who can meet the various qualifications, because with affordable housing there's always income qualifications, credit qualifications, and things of that nature. But it's going to be open to anyone that is interested and who qualifies because of income qualifications and other issues that we're already addressing with a very innovative program that my colleague here is running called Ready to Rent, and she's being helped with Rachel. We've identified a lot of barriers that you talked about. There are barriers, I didn't hear a lot of them, but the barriers we identified was felony records, poor credit using standards set by the dominant culture, a 27-page lease application that our rental agent passed, that I'm going like, I bought property and it didn't take 27 pages. But you know what? We're going to overcome that. If we need to sit down and help you fill it out, we'll do that. But I'm just saying that gentrification, and that's why I came tonight, gentrification is crippling. It is happening all across this country. But some communities are being very progressive in addressing it. Because I can promise you, I don't care what your race, income status, educational level is, when you're pushed out of a place that you're familiar with and sent to no place or some other place, it's traumatic. And so that is one of the reasons, again, we're trying to address issues, people who have been displaced, to say, here's another place for you for now. That's all we can do, but I can sleep at night knowing that at least I tried, and it's something, because the investors came up with $8 million almost overnight. It's like, what? But can I raise the money to provide the services that these people are gonna need in order to be sufficient, to get training skills, if they've got mental health issues? Because for some reason, when mental health is talked about, there's not an attention paid to the people that we serve. But we're still gonna try to figure out how to do it when we can raise the rest of the money. But I just really wanted to say that there is hope on the horizon. It just takes a collective group of people to be determined, who have a vision, and who can see it through.
And that was Dr. Donna Polk from the Nebraska Urban Indian Health Center.
I'm trying to be under the radar.
Wait, too late now. It's too late.
I think this is a good point to take a break, not take a break exactly, but to change directions. I would very much like to have each one of you give some thought as to what solutions you would like to see, what solutions you would like to actually help make happen. So if you can take 5 minutes right now, and within the table that you're sitting, talk to each other and think on your own of 4 solutions that you would like to see happen. And once that happens at the end of 5 minutes, we will collect and review those solutions and find out how many people agree with them, how many common solutions there are. We need a representative from this group. Okay, let's write down.
What we just said,
You have to use the mic.
the problem of it is right now, we are the team. And the next thing of it is, our biggest problem is that we're not organized. Okay? The next thing is that they came in and broke up our organization. Now, I gave them an example. From 30th Street to 16th Street, from Cummings Street to 4th Street, it's 3.3 square miles of land. It is the most valuable land in the state of Nebraska. They don't want you to know that. We built 14 neighborhood groups in that area. Then we built 15 neighborhood groups in that area. It was called North Omaha Community Development. Then what happened is that we went down, stopped, we just started organizing amongst ourselves. We did the Panther thing. We did the Fannie Lou thing. So what we did, we didn't get caught with nobody else, we just started organizing our own community. But then what happened is, I've been gone for 18 years. Am I doing it right? And then when I get back here, we got three neighborhood organizations, and the rest of it's gone.
In North Omaha. Only 3 is what just.
In that area.
Oh, okay, there, okay.
Well, I do, Tyler, I'm wondering what ideas you came up with.
We have mixed use new builds. So actually going back to what was originally there on the 24th Street corridor, which is, obviously a gold mine, but in other parts of the North Omaha area, because really the rest of Omaha is developed. This is the only part that's undeveloped. So those new mixed use builds would allow for retail on the bottom and residential on top. It again, going back to codes, that's the way it was all coded before. They started changing the codes to keep people from having that economic stability, which is what I started my conversation with.
So you're talking about mixed use in development,
Yep.
and was there a second?
And then flexible affordable housing. We keep talking about affordable housing. Now this is my own idea, okay? Flexible affordable housing would be where you come in under the guise of affordable housing. Once you meet that cap, which would cause you to have to move or lose that residency, you have the option of paying that higher rate and moving from affordable housing to self-sustained housing.
Staying in the same place.
Staying in the same place.
Okay. Okay, and then let's,
Point before you go. Habitat for Humanity is taking our whole community. So then again, if you're black or if you're white, because wait, when you talk about race, to me, I don't even want to deal with that. It ain't but one race, that's the human race. And I want to deal with the color of the race, that's the crime. But the Habitat for Humanity has already taken over our community. But if you're white and you're American, and if you're black and you're American, you can't go to get in one of those houses. Because they're doing this, I'm sorry, they just send them up with you. If you're Asian or if you're African, just come in or Chinese, you can get in the house. Habitat Humanity. That's built, Jimmy Carter started. And Jimmy Carter and his brother, the guy that started was for 4 people. The thing of it is that we're just sitting in this room, and as long as you're not organized, you're going to catch hell. As long as you ain't organized and you're looking for somebody else to do your work for you, you're going to catch pure hell. We done did it all. I come here, I see it, and guess what I'm going to tell you?
that's a good place to stop on that
I'm
one.
going to tell you simply this. You, the government, if you don't want to act like the government, then they're going to do that. What's Alex? In other words, the Koch brothers program, that's what you're dealing with. They sitting here giving you their orders, and they taking your money, and they going out west, like the brother said, and building up projects. Ain't nobody out there, because why? They get the money. I was talking to a brother.
Tyler, we really need to move on.
Yeah,
How about this table over here? Is there anyone from this table that wants to give their top 2 ideas? Let me phrase it. Who on this table wants to give their top 2 ideas?
I thought the change city codes to make it easier for little guys.
So change city codes?
Yeah.
And I like what Oswald was saying,
Say it again, I like what you said. Keep on talking. Let her talk as long as you want.
if we do purchase our homes in our communities, we should be relieved of paying taxes. I mean, black people, we got to get some type of reparation. I mean, come on, for sure we will, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
We came from our ancestors back, if we could directly get some of that back, you know.
And I'd like to say that we should all vote, because I would think, how many elected officials are in the room? How many stand up?
1, 2, how many do you count? Just one up front? He used to be, right?
Yeah, I resigned.
You resigned. Oh, you resigned.
Well, I'm just saying, how can we have a meeting that's with this topic and not have one elected official? I don't care what.
Because you said gentrification the other day.
Yeah.
They don't believe it's happening.
No, I'm talking, well, you know, I don't, okay. I'm just saying, vote. November 3rd, 2020, for sure.
Okay, and how about this table over here?
Something that I like to use is the difference between gentrification and revitalization is communication and participation.
Thank you.
So if people are not communicated with and they do not have a hand in participation in a meaningful way, then they will, if not physically displaced, will be socially and economically displaced. And so when we work to have active communication and engagement, yes, it may take longer and it may put delays in your project or whatever, in your timelines, you're still making sure that there are meaningful relationships built with the people there. Because what is a city but its people? Period. So when we're talking about the $25 million that came from HUD for the Choice Neighborhood Grant and the $100+ million that are coming from philanthropy that are going to be dropped on 30th Street in the next coming years, and they're like, oh, well, this is a part of, yes, that's gentrification, because there are people who are who are there who have no idea it's even happening, who aren't a part of that process, who aren't part of the planning, who aren't even being brought up with the education to know what's taking place in their community. So the next thing you know, you'll see this construction of a Buffett this and a that, and in a city that, and then it's just the phantom hand of the city that reaches, and that trust is only exacerbated, and people are further socially displaced.
So this is communication and participation.
Yes.
And this young man knows what he's talking about because he definitely emphasizes communication and participation.
Tell us your name and how you do your communication.
Yeah, so my name is Juan Lamont Hayes. I'm the founder director of Noise, North Omaha Information for Everyone. We are recording this and we'll have it uploaded on our YouTube channel and share it via there. I'm also working with the Omaha Star, writing an article specifically about affordable housing. I interviewed JZoo, will be talking to Holy Name, Habitat for Humanity, J Corp, Omaha 100, and Fair Housing Advisory Services to really get their perspective on what they call affordable. The general term used for affordable, just for clarity's sake, is that HUD uses 80% of the median family income or below is what they identify as median as affordable, and the median family income for Omaha is $86,000. For the Omaha metro area, and that's just applied, and then they do 80% of that. So most of us aren't there. So understand that this number kind of up here then characterizes how we use the term affordable. So when we say affordable, who are we talking about, and who's it for?
Yeah, let's move on to the next table back there.
We came up with, let's see, John suggested that we should explore tiny houses as a way to address homelessness and breaking up of families. Asit suggested that we could explore holding down property taxes in areas where there's large new investments and how the increase in property tax assessments can displace property owners. So we should explore holding down property tax assessments for existing property owners.
So, can everyone hear that? Okay, good. Let's move to this table.
And voting.
Yeah.
We have three things that we talked about. One of them was the increasing need for affordable housing. I think this new ordinance will cause some landlords to just close up and people will be left on the streets. And I think that's a nationwide problem that needs to really be taken seriously. What we need, we decided, was not luxury, wonderful, big houses with all the amenities, but solid, livable houses that are affordable, sort of like what Habitat does. And we think that the city ought to spend as much money on developers who will build affordable housing as it does to help developers to build luxury housing. And thirdly, there's a lot of groups that are talking about this, but care about it. There's a need for all of us to communicate better with one another and to learn how to create a united front, because there's power. I mean, the more people involved, the more powerful our voice is.
So some unified action on the part of all the people who are interested, subsidize affordable housing, and...
Well, it's just the need, the recognition, we need, if you will, simpler housing
Okay.
that people can afford.
And build affordable,
Safe.
simpler housing, okay. And the next table.
So the first suggestion was to create transparency in political and economic processes, so that the question was, how do we follow a process to the end of the process? How can we make sure that we stay engaged, that we know what's happening when we go to a meeting about the revitalization of a neighborhood? How do we know that our input in anything? And we don't see that happening currently. Most of the rest of the conversation we had is about cooperative ownership and how there's a lot of people who are interested in taking on projects that maybe they have to put the sweat equity in, do a lot of work on a project, work together with their neighbors, create like built-in community by buying into a multifamily building or a bank of houses where people own all of the property together, that they maintain that property together, they offer services to each other like childcare in one unit of an apartment building offered by a tenant, or repairs made by a tenant, so that it's not, I mean, you said capitalism is the problem, that we're ending up having these transactional relationships where if my plumbing breaks in my apartment, I have to call maybe a landlord who I don't trust and hire somebody else to do the work when I could just get a neighbor to do the work, and our rent would be a lot lower, and we could own our property and get the equity from that. So ways for cooperative ownership structures to be built by us, for us, maybe some resources on how to manage each other and get through the legal loopholes of owning property.
So transparency and accountability and cooperation. Okay. And the next table.
So I'm just gonna list them as bullet points, but affordable housing requirements in TIF funding and sort of a reworking of how TIF works. New city council, or maybe less extreme, of using, like making housing an issue in elections, because it's not even that right now. So like having that be a main part of what our city is supposed to be doing, that they're currently not. And then just more land and better utilization of the abandoned properties, especially in North Omaha. There's a lot there. There's the land bank that's supposed to be doing that, but we've already talked, there's issues there. So how do we get the lands back in the hands of the people, back into communities as thriving land rather than abandoned land?
Okay, and I'm having a brain fart here, so I'm not going to do a good job of summarizing, but I think you did a very good job of just giving the bullet points. Did everyone get that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next table.
I think there's some issues around TIF. Aaron mentioned TIF, but when it comes to TIF use for low-income housing development, TIF is probably the one time it's used in the manner that it was intended to be used. So I think we need to look at the other places that TIF is used and look at the eligibility, because blighted and substandard needs to be blighted and substandard. It needs to go back to the original intent.
Are you saying
of,
Blackstone's not blighted?
let me put it, TD Ameritrade isn't blighted.
They also got tips. Yeah.
And they just got sold today for $26 billion. So, but when you look at the TIF formula, and I think you're correct, a lot of people don't understand the TIF formula. But if you look at the TIF formula, TIF is based on the economics of the project. If it can work economically, if the numbers work. It doesn't look at the financial ability of the developer, right? So there ought to be a factor in there. And I was mentioning to Ajma, a lot of people don't, realize. Less than 3% of all new housing construction in North Omaha over the last 60 years has been by private housing developers. 97% has been by not-for-profit housing development corporations. And you've named some of them. Habitat, Holy Name, Omaha Economic Development Corporation, New Community Development Corporation. That's not-for-profit housing development that's occurring. So, getting back to a point that Ajamal mentioned, one of the things we need to do as community members is be engaged with these not-for-profit organizations, because they are the folks who are developing the housing. Because I can tell you, the only new housing development in North Omaha that wasn't developed by a not-for-profit was Miami Heights.
Wow, that's right.
That's right. And Carl may remember this because he goes back to North Omaha Community Development. When they tore down Logan Fontanelle and all that land was available, the residents in that area, it was the Conestoga Neighborhood Association. Bob Manuel was the president. Rowena Moore was the vice president. And they wanted to see new housing built on that space. And it was a battle to get financial institutions in Omaha, those houses, to cost to construct them, which is now Conestoga Place, has been there for nearly 40 years now. The cost to construct them was like $60,000. We couldn't find a bank, a financial institution, that would appraise those homes at more than $25,000.
Wow, because of location.
Because of location.
Wow.
So we continue to deal with the redlining issue. We've got to continue to talk about fair appraisals. Appraisals are what are at stake, or at issue when you talk about property taxes. And we can find ourselves in a catch-22 where we can say our properties are being undervalued, and that's what allows people to come and move us out. Okay? But then we value them higher, and then we move out people who can't afford to pay their property taxes. So you've got to find a balance because we don't want housing values go. Those brand new homes. Well, somebody said it's less than 3 years. These homes are less than 7 years old. Just to the east of Conestoga Place, market rate housing. A gentleman came to a community forum a month or so ago and talked about how his neighbor put his house up for sale, and they appraised it so low that it allowed, that he had to get out, and it allowed someone else to come in and buy that house, putting him underwater, right? And it was based on the appraisal that he was able to get on the house, notwithstanding the improvements he had made. So we've got a number of it. We got to deal with appraisals, valuation, taxation, are all important factors in determining how we are going to address. Because I agree with Dr. Polk. I mean, we can sit and talk about this all day long. If we don't come up with some solutions to address it, and Dr. Polk, when we talk about gentrification, her place sits in the middle of the most classic case of gentrification. We talk a lot about what is and is not gentrification, but Dr. Polk, the housing development around her, classic case. Moved the folks out who were there, completely renovated them, and priced them at a rate that is so high they couldn't afford to move back into them. Right. That's gentrification in its purest form.
And let's move to the corner table.
Our table?
What were the major two items she came up with?
Ours are rather quite simple. Rebel. You talk about rebel. You have a broken system, and no matter what you grandstand and vainglory say, it. Look, I'm in my 40s, 5 teenagers, baby. What has changed? Some of you are older than me. What has changed? What committee has done what, other than talk? So I say rebel, and that means you must not be a coward. You must not be fearful. The fearful and the weak have their portion, and don't be that. The other thing will be deconstruct the current regime, and what does that mean? Rebel. You challenge all authority, perceived authority, all legal authority, perceived legal authority, jurisdiction, or so-called jurisdiction, everything. I do that, and I'm just one man. So all of this stuff means, like I said, I hope you feel good when you go home. It does nothing.
The system right now, you cannot fix the system working within the system. It doesn't work. You're going to have to dismantle the whole system.
And you've got to do that with absolute no fear. A lot of our men are incarcerated. And so then we have the other version of our men who are in bed with these people. And these people, I mean the heathen, I mean those, our adversaries, or I mean our oppressors, all those people. What's changing? Like I said, I raise my children solo. I homeschool my kids solo. You know what I mean? Because I saw that Omaha Public Schools can't educate my children how to be men. How is that? And my mother isn't. My mother knows half of you people in here. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Or you've worked for her. And she's the first one to say, hey, no. What can you teach them? So you challenge things on that level. You rebel on that level. But you cannot be fearful. And I smell fear. Why do I smell fear? Because if them laws come through that door, half of you won't buck up. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, whatever. If one of these brothers out here say something and challenge, he'll get his ass kicked back there while y'all report with your video. But you won't help him. So our thing, our table is rebel. Deconstruct the program. Totally. All these programs, throw them all out. All out. Kill all your interests. You want to say, a gentleman said something about we're all human race. Hey man, I don't subscribe to that theory. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't be here. If we were all the same, why are we here? Don't make no sense. Sound like a narrative I've heard or my parents have heard before. It's not real. Stop lying to yourself. I don't. You should stop lying to yourselves. You want change with all these mayors and all these? Hey man, go to their house. Go to their office, serve them. Get the sheriff, the actual highest law of the land. The sheriff, serve them, challenge them. Get all these people in here. Let's go to the courthouse, the federal courthouse, not the bank. not the state, the courthouse, that's a bank. All you gotta do, you got a computer in your pocket, look it up. Challenge it, stand on something actual. Other than that, you just stroking yourself, making yourself feel good, or stroking these other people, it won't do nothing. I said, I have a primary concern. 4 boys, 3 here. I worry about the police. Coming here, I worry about the police. That's what I worry about. So instead of fear, I'm at your door serving you. Now, if I can get 10 more people to do that, we might have a movie.
I'm hearing you rebel. That's
right.
And the next table?
We discussed a little bit, we have some doctoral public health students about how they talked to pretty much everybody about who had thought about the health impact that either they would be imposing on the community they're coming into, or even the people in that community, and nobody really had anything to say. So I think bringing those numbers, bringing the information about how this affects people's health, how does that in turn affect their access of emergency rooms, hospitals, all these other things, it's all very connected. The other point that I liked and that I thought about a lot was, what is affordable housing? If you ask a lot of my clients, they'll tell me it's HUD housing or Section 8 or subsidized housing, which are kind of all the same but all different. And if our area median income is in the mid, like $86,000, affordable housing isn't for me. I don't know who it's for, because I think if I had $86,000, I could probably afford market rate housing. So is affordable housing just, subsidized market rate housing? And who's receiving the subsidy?
Okay, and I notice people are starting to drift out. Don't forget to fill out your evaluation before you leave. And there's 1 table left.
There's two tables.
Oh, okay. We did a lot of discussion, some of the discussions like small houses, except one of the things that I said was there was a couple at our church. We had a forum 2 years ago on housing, and they live in the community. They're not wealthy, but they have been able to save some money, and they went through the land bank, purchased a house, hired a contractor who is a convicted felon and was needing to get a start in his business. They then sold the house at a small profit. We're not talking, huge profits. That was not their intent. Their intent was to sell it at maybe $3,000 to $5,000 above what the actual expenses were for them. And now they have talked with, and I don't know whether it's going to continue or not, but they've talked with other members of our church in the hopes to doing it 2 or 3 more times. So yes, it's small, it's not, but it is accomplishing something, and it's not an intention to, it's intention to make affordable housing that the people can maintain, and also it is to renew the community, in a small way, in a small capability.
Okay, I believe that is it. I want to thank everybody who has, did I miss someone? I would like to thank everyone who participated, who showed up here today. All of the organizations that were on the panels will receive copies of the sign-in sheet. You may, and if you have checked the box saying you would like further action, you may well be hearing from them. PRI will be having a meeting in this church 2 weeks from today. We're skipping Thanksgiving. So the first Thursday in December at 6:30 to talk about affordable housing.
Here?
It will probably be in the library, but in this church, yes.
Please fill out your evaluation forms. We take the feedback seriously, and it will help us design our next meeting.
I would invite everybody to the next housing team meeting of OTUC in the library on December 3rd. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, December 3rd at 4 o'clock.